Chairwoman Capito and Ranking Member Whitehouse. I appreciate you allowing me to speak in support of the Ozone Standards Implementation Act of 2017, which I'm pleased to join the Chairwoman in co-sponsoring. I believe it's a sensible piece of legislation. I also want to thank Chairwoman Capito and Ranking Member Whitehouse and the rest of the panel for allowing my legislation, the Ozone Regulatory Delay and Extension of Assessment Length, or the ORDEAL Act. It's an ordeal just to get through that acronym, I know, in this legislative hearing. We all want clean air, and as a nation, we've come a long way since the Clean Air Act and its subsequent amendments. However, we ought to all be concerned about regulation that creates burdensome red tape for little or no appreciable benefit. I'm happy to see Director Cabrera, representing the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality, on the witness panel today and providing the perspective of Arizona environmental regulators who have to implement these standards. I'm also glad that Dr. Monica Kraft from Arizona is here to share her perspective as well. This issue is very important to my home state of Arizona. I've testified twice on the pressing need for ozone reform. In 2015, the EPA essentially changed the rules in the middle of the game and finalized its rules on the ozone emission standard at 70 parts per billion. After this rule came out, I heard from stakeholders throughout Arizona that it might be impossible for the state to meet this new standard. With costly compliance requirements, this onerous rule will burden counties and businesses already working in good faith to meet the previous standard. In my opinion, the rule demonstrates complete tone deafness. It's particularly detrimental to Arizona, where we greatly feel the impact of EPA's failed air regulatory regime. This rule comes with great cost and with little to no benefit. In fact, Arizona's Attorney General joined other states in filing a lawsuit over the rule. I believe it's time for Congress to step in. That's why I was happy to work with Chairwoman Capito in introducing the Ozone Standards Implementation Act of 2017. Among other provisions, this legislation phases in the implementation of the 2008 and 2015 ozone standards, extending the compliance date for the 2015 standards to 2025. This bill also includes a provision from a bill that I've introduced, as I mentioned, the ORDEAL Act, that would change the mandatory review of national ambient air quality standards from 5 years to 10. This would make a big difference. In critical states, it is critical that states have the flexibility and time to implement their own innovative and proactive measures. And that's why last year I introduced a congressional resolution to halt the implementation of EPA's 2015 rule on ozone. We've got to have time to be able to comply, and we can't change the rules in the middle of the game. I'm pleased that Congress is focusing on legislative remedies, and I'll continue to support legislation and regulatory changes to lessen the impact of this devastating rule on Arizona communities. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee.